If you've ever had this feeling that something was terribly wrong with the world that we live in, but you couldn't figure out just what it was, then you've come to the right place. Secret societies, mystery religions, and the Illuminati have been controlling our reality since the beginning of time. But not anymore, because there is an awakening happening, and you are about to become a part of it. Wake up, because this is a call for an uprising.
This is a call for an uprising. Today's show is about the Beatles, one of the first real bands that became social agitators for the Illuminati. They were put there primarily as a test to see if they could use these false idols through the television set, through their music, to influence and persuade the masses into following their agenda. And guess what? It worked. Former MI6 agent John Coleman, in his book Committee of 300, admits that they were a psychological operation created at Oxford with the intent of using them to promote and push and influence their agenda, which was the New Age agenda, which they ushered in with the Beatles, who I might add, the Beatles, just a short time before they became a famous band, were actually just a cover band who performed in the red light district. Okay, this was an anti-Christian movement they started with the Beatles. They presented them as an anti-establishment band, but of course they were pushed in the mainstream, so they couldn't have been too much of an anti-establishment band, but they made them look cool. They conditioned the masses into thinking they were the greatest band of all time. They're still relevant today because they were a successful Illuminati propaganda machine that they used to persuade the masses. So they still continue to use them and shove them down your throat. And they're presented as the greatest band of all time, of course, because the Illuminati are proud of what they created with the Beatles. Paul was on record as saying Christianity didn't fit with his life. John Lennon, Christianity will go. It will vanish and shrink. I need not argue that. I am right and will be proved right. That was John Lennon on Christianity. So they were pushing this free love, drugs, rock and roll, right, out with God's law, and in with the do what thou wilt movement, which we discussed with Aleister Crowley. Right? Aleister Crowley was known as the Beast. The Beatles, of course, like many other musicians, followed his teachings, including the law of reversals. That's why a lot of the Beatles albums you can backmask and find occultic messages in those songs. Crowley also appears on the cover of Sgt. Pepper's, right? Because the Beatles said that they wanted to put their heroes on the cover, so they put Aleister Crowley, Karl Marx, just some satanic slime on the cover of the album. Is that a coincidence? Aleister Crowley admitting in his book that the strongest form of magic is child sacrifice and pedophilia with a young child, and orgasming and doing the spell at the same time. Yet these musicians promote him and support him, and nobody seems to care because everybody's asleep. Everybody's asleep. If you wore a shirt with a rapist on it, you think somebody might have a problem with it? Well, only if the media pointed it out to everybody. That's the only way. Otherwise, nobody would even know or care. They say, oh, who cares? But unless the media tells you to care, you don't care. The people don't care. Well, there's Crowley right on the cover, along with Karl Marx, like I mentioned. You can also see various occult symbols in some of their album covers. Like Yesterday, Today, the alternate album cover, just features the Beatles covered with a dead baby. Well, they're holding dead baby dolls, right? They're all holding it, smiling. It's a nice little pose, right? Holding dead babies' arms and heads and stuff like that, especially since we know what a dead child means to the occult. We know what abortion sacrifice means to the occult. We know what sacrificing a child to Baal means to the occult. So they have that on the cover. Then for a promotional photo for Yellow Submarine, you have Paul McCartney doing the 666. Then there's their songs where you can find occultic meanings in their music, such as Lucy in the Sky. Okay, it's about Lucy in the Sky with diamonds. It's about Lucifer. Lucy is Lucifer. That's who they're referring to. Not some girl up the road named Lucy. Nope, they're referring to Lucifer. Then they have the song Across the Universe, which talks about demonic possession. That's what that song's about. Across the Universe is about demonic possession and nothing more than demonic possession. Because as we know, these musicians, all of these Satanists, perform rituals to be demonically possessed, and they are under demonic possession. So you get the Beatles, right? One of the biggest bands of all time, one of the first bands. People, of course, are going to be very defensive of this. They think that it's just musicians from today that are the ones doing it, when it's the entire music industry. It always has been the entire music industry. Okay, they learned of the power of music and how they could put spells on you through music. And then the advent of the television really helped them out more because they could create these people as false idols. They use them as social icons, using them to push you and direct you into what they want you to follow. So they put the Beatles out there and they say that they're the greatest band of all time. Then you regurgitate it. The Beatles say, peace, love, rock and roll, man. We don't want this. They ushered in the hippie movement, the free love movement, where everybody was doing drugs and these things. Everybody was starting to move against God. The Beatles ushered that in. They were created to do that. They're still relevant today. Is it because their music is so outstanding? It's because they want it still there. It's still conditioning that works. It's worked since the beginning. And they're idols, they're major false idols because the Illuminati created them and they still want them to be relevant because that's their creation. Is Aleister Crowley on the cover of Sgt. Pepper's, is that a coincidence? He was just thrown in there randomly. This man who practiced black magic, occult magic, sex magic. The Beatles, of course, had their magical mystery tour. So even referring to magic, like we've discussed on this channel many times. But think about what the Beatles really represented socially. That new movement that they represented, the New Age movement. Because we're still in the New Age movement. Right? This anti-Christianity. Just be a good person. Be cool, man. Don't care about just whatever, man. Let's get high or let's have a great time or, we don't need the restrictions of God's law. The Beatles represented that. And you can see it in all the signs. The album covers, the lyrics of their songs, the backmasking that they've done, and the fact that they're still talked about today, that they're still immortalized today. This many years later, they're still talked about, still referenced all the time, socially. They still talk about them on TV and make them seem relevant. Why do you think that is? Do you honestly really think it's because they're the most talented band ever or something stupid like that? Of course not. You don't get to a level like that, such as the Beatles especially. You don't get to any level now in music without being a part of it, without being a part of the satanic occult. But you definitely don't get to an immortalized level such as the Beatles, okay, without being deep rooted in the occult, without worshiping Satan, period. You could talk about John Lennon and why was he killed and stuff like that. People ask all the time about him and JFK and how were they a part of it and then get killed. Well, there's lots of reasons behind those sorts of things. Okay, you don't think that there's arguments within the occult? You don't think somebody might be tempted to leak something out and then they have to kill them? Of course, there's still arguments and there's still issues inside of their pyramid, power issues, trust issues. And I'm not going to get into who or why John Lennon was assassinated or if he was going to leak any information on the Illuminati like some people believe. We're not going to get into the other theories about how Paul McCartney, the original Paul McCartney, died and he was replaced by a clone. Okay? Those are all things that have been discussed that you can research yourself. But I'm here just to point out the blatantly obvious Illuminati symbolism in all of the Beatles' works. It's all in plain sight. There's many, many things. It's not just like it's one thing, right? The Crowley thing is a massive thing. I mean, Crowley is a Satanist to the core. They still use his books on black magic and sex magic. They still worship him. He wasn't there in the album cover as a coincidence. You can look at the quotes by John Lennon. Again, I'll quote what he said. Christianity will go. It will vanish and shrink. I need not argue that. I am right and will be proven right. Yeah, well, screw you, buddy. Okay? Because Christianity's not going anywhere. They're going to have to kill us off to get rid of it. Because I know for sure myself that I will never betray Jesus Christ. I will never turn my back on him. And I know many people who subscribe to this channel will not turn their backs on Jesus Christ. You will have to kill us to be proven right, Mr. Lennon, which ironically is what ended up happening to you by your own brothers in the occult. But Christianity, we will not allow it to die. And if Christianity did die and they killed us off before the end times, our Father would intervene, because this world is not going to run without the scriptures in it, without the message of our Father, without the message of Jesus Christ. It will not go on without the scriptures here. So sorry, Mr. Lennon. I think you were either misquoted, maybe you were high on LSD, pal. But Christianity is not going anywhere. You guys are going somewhere. All of you, Satanists. And that is straight to hell. So enjoy your time here storing up treasure. Enjoy it, because it's not going to last much longer. I thank you for listening to today's show. God bless you all. Peace be with you.